the ad read?
Yeah, I was born ready, Daddy.
All right, let's do it. 3, 2, 1, go.
This episode of Open Markets Podcast is brought to you by Daniel Salmon, who wanted me to say, I just wanted to see Jacob get tased. That's right. That's a thing that we're doing. It's happening this weekend on Mother's Day. It's my mom's Mother's Day present. Jason's going to fucking tase me. And we also have to give a big fat shout out to Derek Diamond and Kathy Gutierrez Figueroa. Thank you so much for supporting us on Patreon. And if you want to be as cool as them, go to www.openmicrospodcast.com. Let's play the music.
Here we go. Oh, that music can only mean one thing. It is time for the Open Micers Podcast. My name is Jason Robbins.
I'm Jacob Craig, and I get few joys in life, but one of them is not telling our guests that they won't be able to hear the music, and that causes fun.
Well, see, they were supposed to be able to hear the music, and I upgraded everything for the show, and now everything fucking doesn't work like it's supposed to. So great, fantastic.
I was imagining. Oh, I imagined a just really awesome song.
Yes.
Yeah, it's probably what you imagine is probably better than our theme song.
Oh my God, what awful technical problems we've had. So we're just doing this the old-fashioned way. And joining us tonight, we have two guys that I'm very excited to talk to. Up first, we have Mr. Robbie Hennig. Both of these guys are from the Old Rob podcast. So Mr. Robbie Hennig, say hi.
Hello.
And of course, we have Mr. Jessie McCann.
Hello.
So tell me the genesis of the Old Rob podcast, because I've known you guys for decades now. And Robbie, I had no idea you were such a good storyteller. So tell the people how this came about.
My God, we've been telling stories for years. The more you drink, the more you talk too. Yeah, I mean, I guess it came about a few ways. It's kind of funny. I think the last few years, especially the last couple of years, the general environment in the air has been quite negative and a little downer between politics and everything else. I was feeling kind of down, and I like to do, as you know, I've been in bands and like to play music, and I like art, and just was looking for some other way to kind of just escape, and just kind of passing around a few ideas with some people. My friend our friend David Seymour, and but there was all really came together one night. Me and Jesse there, we had a man's weekend. He has a cabin out at.
Sounds sexy.
Oh, it was more like Brokeback Mountain kind of.
A lot of oil and nudity, but we
candles, man. We had candles too.
Candles. Those Scentsy candles that he's selling. He's got a just amazing cabin in the woods by the mountains in Oregon here, and we went and just was hanging out there just to get away, and we're sitting there, man, drinking at this table just right across from each other, and I was telling some fucked up story of some show or something at my house years ago, and Jesse was just cracking up. We were cracking up about it, and he's like, "Man, this would make a good podcast." And I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" And he's like, "This right here, man. Just me and you telling stories, and we just laugh." He's just like, "That's it. That's the whole thing, And I'm like, "Who the hell wants to hear stories about?" And he said, he's like, "Man, you had an interesting life growing up." He's like, "Everyone has has stories." He's like, you got so much far out shit that it's just always interesting and funny." And so I was like, I don't know. I never thought about doing anything like that. So got to brainstorm with David Seymour one day on a drive up to see our friend Paul Blacksmith up here in Washington, and David and I were going back and forth, and he was like, "Man, that's an amazing idea." He's like, "That shit would be funny," and just kind of had some ideas. And then Jesse and I just talked about it again, and he said, "Look, I got everything at my house. Jesse has some podcasts going on, and he's amazing, did, recording all kinds of music and everything his whole life. And he's like, just come over, we'll just sit down and just put 2 mics and just record. And that's
So Jesse, do you have like a home studio or that you guys record in?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a makeshift studio in my garage that over the years have collected, all kinds of equipment, and I've been using that space for recording anything I feel like recording. And so a couple of years ago, I started my own sort of guitar related podcast and did that for like a year and a half. And it was pretty successful. I, learned a lot about how to do it, and taught myself a lot about editing and all that kind of stuff. And that's sort of how the idea sparked in me when we were hanging out at the cabin, and I was just thinking like, this I could easily turn this story into something to release on a podcast. It would, and that's why I mentioned it to him, because it wasn't like I think if I hadn't had the experience or knew what I was doing with all the prior podcasts that I had done, it might not have been something I just sort of blurted out like that. I was confident that I could handle just it would be one of the easiest things is having 2 people in the same room recording.
Well, it sounds really good. A lot of people don't have that good a sounding like a professional sounding podcast when they've first come out the gate, because like you go back and listen to my first podcast and they're freaking awful, like unlistenable bad.
Well, I mean, think about it. If you had to start a whole new podcast, think of what you wouldn't do again, right? Yeah. That's just how it worked. Like when Robbie and I started talking about, well, what do we want? We did a kind of test pilot episode, and we got feedback from friends, and they were like, yeah, it's funny, but it's not really like flowing very well. And so, we went back and we talked about what could we do better to make the story, a little more interesting. And then from there came all the ideas about, well, I could put some intro music in there. We could make it more like,
who does the intro music? By the way, that was one of the first things I wanted to ask you about. Was that you that wrote that music?
It's all me. It's all me.
So good. Like it's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Everything we own, everything was, is ours. It's Jesse with the music, the intros, the art, was done by David Seymour.
Yeah. The podcast art just completely just encapsulates everything that the show is about. And
absolutely,
if you've never listened, like anybody listen to this, if you've never checked out the Old Rob podcast, it's basically just Rob telling these amazing stories of growing up here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And the funny thing is, like when I listened to the first couple episodes, like what year did you graduate? Because we went to the same high school.
92.
So we were like 3 years apart. I graduated in 95. So you were already like the stories of Robbie Hennig were legendary around the Iberville High School.
Dude, there were rules. Oh my God. So there were rules. Like there were new rules at the school.
Yes, there were rules put in place because of you.
Shit that I did. my kids ended up going to the high school. They were like, we can't do this or this or this. And I'm like, yeah, you're welcome. Of you.
And it's funny, like listening to those. And I think people will enjoy, like when I first heard the podcast, it was so good. I'm like, if this doesn't turn into some kind of like Netflix series or something, like there's no justice in the world, because there's no way this kind of all this kind of shit happens to one person, and it does. And you encapsulated it with the last episode where you're exactly like Forrest Gump. You are the living Forrest Gump. Like you could sue and win a court case against Robert Zemeckis.
A good argument. I'd have a great argument, dude. I didn't think about that till later. It was just like, wow, what a interesting situation. It just, I think just growing up was just stories were just natural for us too. I grew up and I remember every Sunday after church, so my family would go to my grandparents out in the woods, And we'd eat dinner, and every Sunday we'd sit. My grandpa would pop in his 8-track Jerry Clower cassettes, dude, and just laugh our asses off and just hearing Jerry Clower stories. And like every time it's the same shit because it's the same 8-track, over and over. And we would just sit around laughing, and that would just, I remember that between that and, just, going to the barber shops and hearing the old men tell stories, and, just everywhere you went, growing up in the South, especially down there. And it was just a part of our life, so
Yeah.
it's natural.
I mean, Robbie's lived out here for some time now, and he and I have grown, closer as friends. And like, he tells these stories, and there's stories that I've known because some of them I lived through, but also just, knowing that he knowing who he is and having, what he's been through. He's told these stories to me multiple times, and not all of them, because some of these I'm like, most of them I would say that we've recorded at this point, I'd say like the first 4 I kind of knew, and but the rest of them I'm like, what is happening right now? But he's told these stories in such a way that like he's had some time actually to perfect his own delivery of them,
Yeah.
over the last several years, because we get together, we see Paul sometimes, and then these stories come out. He just starts telling, we all start laughing our asses off. It's just, I think that's another reason why it works really quickly for us. Like we were even kind of surprised about how well like the first few episodes sounded, in terms of the flow. Like it was like, but it was because I think we've had this history of just hanging out and talking, and this is how we talk. This isn't like, we're not scripting anything. This is just how we hang out. And so it just somehow magically worked on the microphones. We weren't, neither one of us were getting, camera shy or microphone shy or whatever.
I'm a pretty shy guy.
Just go.
Yeah. We there's no script, so Jesse has no idea what the story will be when I show up at his house. I play with his kids for a minute, and his dogs, and we go out in the garage, we sit down, we turn it on, we catch up for a second, and then we just start. We never record twice. It just,
well, definitely
every episode's
it adds to the story when you're telling these stories and you have Jesse cracking up in the background, because it's just so ridiculous. It's like, that's what makes it. It's like everything meshes together to make the perfect storytelling experience.
No, I just don't think it would work if it was just Robbie telling the story, right? I mean, even if you went to like some high production thing where you had all this like sound effects and stuff like that, it would be funny. But it doesn't work unless you have a live audience there with him responding to it.
Yeah. David Seymour said his idea in the beginning was, he said, you need to make this like you're sitting at a bar and it's just you and the bartender, and bartender's leaning over the bar.
It's almost
having a
drink.
Like. Yeah, and he's like, and you're telling a story, and it's like, and that's just how it worked. And we didn't, but that his description of that made me think like that's exactly what we're doing. It's just
it's funny because I started listening on the second episode. I downloaded the first 2 episodes because all of my friends, all of our mutual friends were talking about it. And I didn't know much about it because I'd been avoiding Facebook like the plague for the last few years. And didn't know much about it. So when I went to listen to it, the first couple episodes, I didn't know that was you, Jesse, because you guys don't introduce yourselves. You don't like, hi, this is Jesse. This is like, you get the theme music, and then it's just immediately you guys are like already in the middle of a conversation, and you just go for like 30 minutes. And I'm like, who is that second voice? And I went back and like, holy shit, that's Jesse.
Yeah, we kind of, I don't know if we intentionally did that, or we just, we just wanted to make it about the stories, not about, I say not about us because it's the fucking show's old Rob, but it's more of like, we didn't want to make it that. It was just more of like, just like that. We're just 2 guys sitting down telling stories and laughing and just having a good time. So.
Yeah, I had gone back and forth with like, should we do some kind of intro at the beginning of each show and talk about like, set it up in some way, or and I realized like there might be some disadvantages to not telling anybody who you are. but I also like like that it makes you kind of have to look a little harder. Like, our names are listed on the show. If you go to the show notes, they're right there. But I'm, I kind of like it might have been something that carried over from, when Robbie and I were talking a lot, we were recording a number of these stories were recorded before we actually launched the show. And so during that time we were, there was discussion about, like, reminiscing on punk rock days and stuff, and the bands we were in and all that stuff. And so I started to think it might be kind of cool just to, in some ways, emulate the same kind of approach where you just go, just get going. And, I'm not going to put a bunch of frills in there. The theme music's like 30 seconds long. It's, like, I like that idea, and just, boom, boom, boom. And then there's an outro and it's over. And, like at some point we'll do something where we're like, hey, let's talk a little bit about us. But for now, it's not going to be like that.
And I like your attitude about it, because I feel the same way about podcasting. Is like, all three of us came from, the punk rock scene that was here in the 90s. And we all have that fuck it, do it yourself attitude. And that's why I like podcasting so much, is because it's all DIY. I do everything I want to do. And I don't have to give a shit. I don't have to listen to anybody. I don't have to do what anybody else says, except for Jacob, but I don't really listen to him either.
Right. Yeah.
And he hasn't even said anything this whole time, so fuck him.
Well, all I have to do is make it funny. You show up and do everything, and then I show up and everyone laughs. But I was sitting here thinking that Jesse and Rob actually look like me and you if we had our shit together.
Yeah, it's like
Dude,
the light side and the dark side.
The doppelganger thing is really weird right now.
Yeah, how'd this happen?
And Jacob wore a blue shirt. I'm like, I'm glad he got the email.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
the two guys with hair got the email for blue shirts.
But we've known each other for so long, and it's just funny to hear you talk about these stories, shit that I heard secondhand, years ago. And it's just, I don't know. I think if people would just give it a chance to, and just listen to it, even though, I got something out of it, because we're all from the same area, and we all know the same, like, we talk about the same places, and we both went to the same high school, even though we weren't there at the same time. We were all came up in the punk rock scene here, and just to hear, like, all this stuff that was happening, like, away from me, but all this stuff's going, and it's just so cool to hear those stories. And I think even if you're not, like, from this area or whatever, you can get something out of it, because it's, even though these stories are so out there and just the crazy shit that you do, it's still relatable. And I know that's weird to say, but it is.
Well, I think too, there was another aspect of the show was also kind of a, it was kind of a introduction to people who only have a cliche knowledge of Mississippi.
Exactly.
And, for me, man, growing up on the Gulf Coast especially was, people don't realize, like you said, like the punk scene we had, and just the normal people. We're not just all wearing, overalls and barefoot.
Yeah, we're not all hillbillies. Like,
they're
some of
around,
us are, but
they're also fun, And I think it's also like, it's such a unique mix. And I kind of bring that up of, like, one night I'm coon hunting. Yeah. The next night I'm at a punk show at someone's house with, and getting naked, jumping, and just fucking rocking out. Like, who else has had that life in this country? I don't know. Maybe it's all, maybe everywhere, but I think it's pretty unique. And I think that's what makes us who we are down there. People on the Gulf Coast are fucking crazy, dude. I'd put people on the Gulf Coast up against anyone in the world. They're the craziest motherfuckers in the world. Like, and I love that about them, man. They're all crazy, It's
just such a mix of so many different kind of people.
Yeah.
And I have Jesse's reaction to most of the shit you say sometimes too. Like, talking about going coon hunting. Like, who the fuck goes coon hunting? Like, that's such a 1930s thing to do.
Oh, yeah, I know, man. And like I say, also, I say a lot in the show, but it's like I always gravitate to those, the outcasts, the rebels, the punk rock of this, the punk rock of that. I call it, punk rock's not just the look, the mohawk, and the the t-shirt, but it's like going out and finding these things, the craziest people doing the most weird things that I just, it's the punk rock of this, punk rock of that. And it's true. It's just, man, you meet these people and you're like, holy shit, they're nuts. Like, I like these guys, man.
So are we ever going to get any crazy Jessie stories? Because I know you've probably got some wild road stories too. Because I don't know if anybody doesn't know Jessie, you know, especially local people. Like if you remember a band called Winterset, which was a really badass, like punk rock, almost like, what would you describe Winterset as? Like almost like the Rush of punk rock. I don't know. It's weird to describe.
Yeah, I mean, there was some like later in the later years of the band, we got a little more progressive with our writing.
That's what I was trying to think, like progressive punk rock.
Right. It's kind of progressive punk in a way, right? Yeah. I mean, I've got stories, and in fact, you know, I was thinking there may be a time soon where we talk a little bit about some of the tour stories from that band, or even from an earlier band we were in called Crooked Letter Youth. And I'd love to bring probably bring Paul in for a couple of those stories, because I'm going to need some help with certain details, because
you know, I got in trouble with my grandparents because of Crooked Letter Youth once. I went to a show.
Oh yeah.
And you guys actually printed out, like did this like 11x17 sheet of lyrics for the album. And I had that and I took it home. It was in my pocket, but it fell out. I borrowed my grandpa's car to go to that show. And that lyric sheet fell out of my pocket, and my grandparents found it. And I got like a 3-hour lecture because of the lyrical content of Crooked Letter Youth. They were so worried about me after that. They're like, something's wrong with him.
You need to get back in church.
Exactly. That was what I got. Like, you need to get back in church, son.
Hey, not the same, completely kind of out there, but it's similar. My brother and I, he learned to drive, right? And my brother and I took the family car out, and it's big Buick, and I had a cassette tape. And this is when NWA, dude, just hit the scene, right? And this shit was, so my brother and I were playing this "Fuck the Police" and all this shit, and we got the tape in there. We're jamming it in the family car, right? Well, we forgot we left the damn tape in there. Dude, my dad was a preacher at the church. He got in the car, he turned it on, dude. That shit came on full blast. Look, he came to my house. Look, he came to our house. He came home and he sat us down, and I'm sitting there going, what's this about? When that tape came up and I saw it was like slow motion, he threw it at us. He said, "How does this sound, motherfuckers? Fuck you, fuck." We were just sitting there, just mortified. We're like, "Oh shit!" He just went off, man. It was just, of course, my brother like, "It was Robbie." He was. I'm like, "Yeah, I guess so. I'll take it." But oh my god, dude, there was some. I had to start going to church on Wednesday nights too, on top of Sundays.
You got anything you want to ask, Jacob? I've been kind of hogging them over here.
Yeah. No, well, I think that a lot of these stories, a lot of them are from childhood too. But I think when you get into like music or comedy or anything like that, where you're hanging out with this kind of eclectic mix of people, I think that that's kind of when shit happens. Like, I don't know, going to the hospital in a chicken suit or some shit like that.
That's what I was gonna say. Like,
you saw that comment.
Stories
I did see that, yeah.
Wouldn't have been nearly what they were if not for Robbie doing something completely out of left field, like just like putting the elephant head on to go to the casino. Like, who does that shit?
I don't know what it is. It's like it's just the shit that's always in my brain. It's always I have no idea. I can't explain.
And I saw a picture of you a few weeks ago where you went out to a bar with our mutual friend David, and you were dressed like a luchador.
Oh, dude. That's recent. Stories to come. There'll be an episode of that.
Good. I was hoping that was going to be an episode.
Wait, so you're still doing crazy shit like this often?
Every now and then, yeah.
And you know
Every
what's
now and then.
funny?
Yeah.
In Monsters Anonymous, like Robbie's daughter is in the movie as one of the main zombies.
I got this signed.
Oh yeah.
I got a signed poster from there with Mr. Robbins on there.
Yeah.
Um,
But his
love that.
daughter is in the movie as one of the main zombies up front, and she had a speaking role, but she didn't want to say anything because she's so shy. I'm like, you're Robbie's daughter? Like, what the hell happened?
Hey man, you can't. They are who they are, right? You know, they have their own. They have their own weirdness and things they do. So, you know, I mean, I think too, it's good to point out that, like, I mean, that's not my entire. That's not my entire life all the time. Just
Right.
getting fucked up and doing shit all day.
Yeah.
Like, there's, you know, I think it goes back to talking about like this show starting too. There was a pretty big period after Hurricane Katrina, where I was just trying to kind of, I mean, it sounds sappy, but kind of trying to like rediscover yourself and just kind of starting. I was starting a new career as a nurse, and you know, and we moved away from Mississippi, and it was kind of a chance to kind of start over and you know, just kind of break free from all the craziness, because the expectations sometimes down the coast were crazy. I mean, I'd show up at parties and it's like everyone expected automatically this shit was going to get absolutely, and you're like, I just want to watch the band. They're like, yeah, whatever. Like, and then so you know, there was this period of time where it's kind of like I was just kind of separated from everything, and kind of felt like I was kind of losing my, you know, myself. It sounds funny, but it's like, you know, it was like, I got to get back to that. I love that. That's who I am. It's what's fun. It's what I like to do. So yeah, it was just it's just weird how you just kind of, life is, you know, it's just this flow of just stuff. But I've always been doing shit, like Jacob was saying, like the one talking about the notes, the messages. I've been leaving little notes and stuff everywhere my whole life, you know.
Oh, the note story.
Oh man,
I remember when our mutual friend Matt lived in that apartment you guys were talking about, and he was finding those damn notes everywhere. And he was like showing me one time, he's like, freaking Robbie Hennig leaving these notes everywhere. I'm gonna be finding notes for the next 10 years. Man.
And I forgot about half of it. You know, that's the funny thing. Like, there is bits and pieces. And again, like it's my point of view, what I can remember based on being fucked up. And but he sent me messages after that show, and he was like, brush your teeth with this fucker, drink out of this fucker. He was like, son of a bitch. He's like, these things were everywhere. I was just laughing the whole morning, just walking around his house by myself, just slapping them everywhere. I was like, he ain't gonna find this shit.
And Jesse, I know you have to go here in just a little bit, so if you need to duck out, yeah, just cool. It's all good. We know you got to get running.
Yeah, appreciate it.
But I just wanted to let you know, Robbie, that you had an episode completely about Cookie the janitor.
Yeah.
And Cookie the janitor was just one of those dudes that, like, everybody made fun of him, but everybody loved him at the same time. And that was such a fun episode to listen to, because I have a small Cookie story myself, where me and a friend of mine were walking down Senior Hall in 12th grade, and it was during lunchtime. There was nobody in Senior Hall. It was just us two walking down the hall. And that's where the janitors, their office was in that hallway. And I'm in this hallway, there's nobody in there. And I just let out the most hellacious burp, like just like as loud as I could. And then I see, like, down the hall, I see Cookie's head pop out of the door, and he goes, "Get me on you."
Dude, well, he was a dude. It was funny is like I said, this story, like he was just a normal dude outside of school too. Like I'd hang out with him, and like at his business, and it was funny because when I was doing the description of him, I didn't have a picture of him. Someone sent me that picture later from the annual, and it was like Jesse was laughing. He's like, "Dude, this is to the T how you describe."
I was gonna send you a picture if I could find my senior annual. I couldn't find it. I looked for it. My friend, one of my best friends that I've grown up with, wrote the funniest freaking thing in there because they had they had the lunch staff and the janitorial staff all in one picture. So it was Cookie and like all the lunch ladies. And my friend Josh writes the new he wrote the new A team over the top of it.
That's amazing.
I was gonna send that to you.
Man, yeah. I actually, before we did that episode, I reached out to his daughter and just.
Is he still alive or no?
No, he passed away back in like 2007, something like that. And I reached out, I ended up connecting through a few other people, and I got her number, and I just text her to say, hey, just FYI. I just thought it would just be respectful to like let her know, we were doing the episode, and that but I think it was respectful and also funny. It was just I thought it was great. And but yeah, so many characters, man. Just there's characters everywhere all around us, and especially through our school, man. I just think that just don't lose sight of that. It's like, any of them you could pick any. I mean, Mr. Britton is just him alone. There's a whole I don't know if he was your principal or vice principal when you were there.
He was the vice principal when I was there.
Yeah, so many of them's passed away, so it's like this history. But there's so many there'll be other episodes about other teachers too growing up. So.
Do you remember the algebra teacher, Mr. Boland?
Dude,
he used to have this key ring on his belt. He like a fucking jailer, just had like 100 keys
3,000
on
keys.
this thing. And he used to run into the boys' bathroom to catch people smoking.
Yeah.
I was in there one day and I was just in there peeing, but everybody's in there smoking real quick, like in between classes. And my friend Johnny comes running and had his voice down perfect, but he like came in jingling his keys, like, what y'all doing in here? And all you heard was pss, 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 all the cigarettes going out. Everybody was pissed. Like, dude, you idiot. Why you made me waste a cigarette?
Man, that guy, yeah, he was insane. Yeah, and I'm starting there thinking like all those keys were probably the keys to all the kids that he had locked up in like, cages somewhere.
I mean, you would think a janitor would have a big ass key ring, but not like the algebra teacher. Like, what are these keys for?
Yeah. Not a funny story, but he got in my face in the class one day because I was making noises or some shit. I was causing a disruption of some sort. He come over and I remember he puts his hands on my desk in the front of me, and he leaned down and he said something, and I said, get the fuck out of my face. Of course, everybody in the room was like, oh God. And then something just struck me, and I'm like, he goes, once he's walking back to his desk, I took my math book and I just threw it at him. And this thing hit the chalkboard, and it just, loud. Well, the door was open. This is A building. Mr. Richardson's walking down the hall at this time. I had been doing all the other shit too at this time. So Richardson sees it, and I'm scooting desks, and I said, I forgot what it was, like, put your fucking finger in my face again. And now he's shaking and he's freaking out, and Richardson walks straight in, puts me in a headlock, drags me out into the hall, and closes the door, and then he puts his arm around me. He's like, you don't want to do that. He's like, he says, I know he's an asshole. He's like, let's just go to my office and chill for a while. And I just go sit in his office and was just sitting there eating nuts and candy out of his bowl in there while and then the bell rang, and I said, I gotta get my book. He's like, no, I'll go get it for you. He goes and gets it. So yeah, it's just crazy shit like that. Like, I'd be expelled today,
Yeah. Jesse, where did you go to high school at?
When I lived on the coast, I went to Ocean Springs High.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, you went to the good high school with
this fancy.
Yeah, I wasn't there for very long, but yeah, that's where I went.
We went to D'Iberville, where it was just like you were lucky to get an education.
Yeah. You think you had it bad? I went to Van Cleef.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
I don't know how to count.
I didn't know they had a school.
I went to school in a bar.
Yeah.
It's not a school. It's some dude down the street that just holds classes in his trailer.
SKOOL.
Yeah, right. I don't know if this is funny or not, but I'm sitting here trying to think of stories from my high school. And there was one kid who I showed up to school one day, and like the whole Van Cleve police force was there. Like we have 12 cars in Van Cleve, so all 12 cars were at the high school. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Apparently, and now remember, I went to high school, I graduated 2018. So apparently some sophomore on Snapchat posted a picture of himself with an old 1800s flintlock pistol and captioned it, "Don't come to shul tomorrow." He misspelled school because he went to Van Cleve. He spelled it SHOOL. He said, "Don't come to shul tomorrow." So whenever that kid came to shul, the 12 cops fucking arrested him. They needed 12 cops to arrest a sophomore kid.
All I can
Take
say
that
is
shit seriously, man.
all I can say is I'm glad we didn't have Instagram, Snapchat, recording.
Yeah, you'd be
phones.
fucked, dude.
Yeah.
Well, I've always said I'd either be mega rich or mega in prison.
Yeah, you would be canceled for sure.
I'm just glad we got to go through high school without any kind of like social media or anything like that, because you wouldn't be able to get away with anything anymore. No. Like the only reason you got away with all the shit you got away with was there was no record of it other than
there was no record,
word of mouth.
And it was sheer surprise. You know, you think like Jessie and I talked about this, how like, you know, you look at people like you look at the Jackass and you look at all those guys, they're our age, you know, like they were doing the same, they were doing all this shit we were doing, just they had the wherewithal to, you know, Ryan Dunn had the wherewithal to record it, right?
Yeah.
And we just weren't recording. But we were so it's that our generation was kind of coming up doing these things. It was throwing people off. The school didn't know what to do with me. They didn't, and then I had good grades. I was putting minimal effort and had, you know, A's and B's. And so they were like, well, shit, he's passing. What are we supposed to do with this guy?
I was the same way at the Iberville High School. I put in like the minimal of effort and still made like A's and B's, C's.
Man, I graduated like 60th in my class. And I think my senior year, I think probably 60% of my senior year, I was either, I was drunk or tripping on acid. And I was like, how did I graduate with this? Like, I'm thinking, man, if I just would have just drank, wouldn't have been drunk half those days, I may have been, you know, gunning for valedictorian or something. So
I got a full ride somewhere.
Man. Gosh.
Hey, I got to cut out, so I would just want to say thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much, Jesse.
Show. Yeah, it's good talking to you guys.
You too, man. We'll have you back on again soon because you guys. Yeah, thank you. But yeah, what else was I gonna say? Like just all the stories, like I said, it sounds like it would be the type of podcast that's like you had to be there to understand the stories, but you're such a good storyteller that I think if anybody from anywhere, like it's such like a lot of it is coming of age type of stuff, trying to figure out who you are, you know, as a teenager. And that's something that, you know, everybody goes through. It doesn't matter if it's here or if it's New York or if it's LA or if it's, you know, Midwest, like everybody kind of goes through the same thing. And that's why I like listening to the ones I like best are the ones where you talk about high school, because it's like everybody just trying to find out who you are as a person.
Just
and
the
then
awkwardness. Yeah.
And you're just like, you know what, I'm just gonna do what feels right to me, no matter
I'm gonna
how
be the most
awkward.
I'm gonna be the most awkward and makes everyone else feel like they can do anything.
Yeah, like you took your awkwardness and you just cranked it up to 20.
Man, my brain. Yeah, I was so bored. I was bored in high school. And I'm not saying that to be like, oh, I'm just so smart. It just wasn't anything for me. If you weren't into sports, you know, or whatever, it's like you're very limited.
Well, that's the thing. I wasn't in the sports either. And that's why I was so hardcore into the punk scene. Like as soon as I got a drum set, I found my purpose in life at that point. I was like, just fell right into it. And that's shaped me as a human being.
Yeah. I think, you know, that was what was weird about me though, was it threw people off too, is that I didn't really fit. I didn't make myself just fit into a certain category. So I could go out and hang out with and be around any group. It wasn't like, oh, the jocks and this and this and this and this. It was like could just be around whoever. I just like I like people. I like, it's like everything's a social experiment with me. And so I just like people, and I like to bring people together. So that's what's fun about this show too. Is like just bringing people together to laugh instead of trying to debate things they don't know what they're talking about and then getting angry over it. So yeah, it's been fun, man. And like I said, Jesse's he just made it all so easy to put together. Without him, I wouldn't have been able to bring this to fruition so quickly. And it's fun. I mean, it's just, like he said, we're friends, so we're literally hanging out and talking and laughing, and it's like our little kind of our therapy, each week to go and laugh and have a drink and hang out. So that's been great. There'll be more shows about, like, I haven't really talked much about like the punk shows and shows yet. I mean, that chaos, some of the parties at my house, Jesus Christ, that shit's a circus. That's all coming later. And we were talking about the future. How do we keep this going? How do we keep this engine running? And I mean, eventually, it's like, how many more stories and what can we talk about? We're going to start doing interviews with people, bringing more people on, getting their side of it, getting their point of view.
Yeah, that's what I want to hear, is some of these people that are involved in your stories. Like, what was their side of that story?
I know. Yeah. It's like David, Seymour was saying, like, he's got, he was there the night that we was out in the woods and Satanist, and he's got I didn't even know where he was. So he's got his whole part that I don't know even exists because I wasn't with him.
Yeah.
And like his point of view, and maybe even someone that was on the other side, because I still talk to some of those guys too, that was on the hammering end of us on that situation. So yeah, well, just see where it goes and just keep making it fun.
So what kind of is your what is your guys' like kind of plans for the podcast? Is just sort of just seeing where you go with it, or do you have like a kind of a, not an end goal, but do you have like goals that you want to do with the show?
I mean, we do kind of. We actually just discussed this past weekend. We're gonna do another guys weekend soon and go out in the cabin and drink some good whiskey and just start kind of plotting things out. I think it just kind of all hit us so fast and it's all just gone so well. I don't think we really expected to just roll so fast. And so we're going to kind of sit down and say, okay, we've had people reaching out who want to sponsor us and things, and we just had no plan for that. We didn't even know how to begin. So we're learning as we go. I mean, there's some things that came natural, but a lot of things we're just, figuring out. So
I think you, since David does know, and I, not so much anymore, but I used to animate snippets of an old show that me and my friend Wally used to do, and used to do like 2-minute long animated clips. And I think if you could hook up with a really good animator that knows how to do stuff really fast and Toon Boom or something like that, and turn your episodes into animation along with the like, just take the whole, like that whole first episode, which is, even though it's 30 minutes long, if you could do a 30-minute animation to that audio of that show, it would be, I think you would have.
So that's actually the top of our list. Animation, an animated series of stories was one of our first brainstorms of when we started this, and we're actually doing some research right now, trying to find an animator that would be willing to help us out and not break the bank too much. I mean, I understand they got to make a living too.
So we're trying to animation. I used to do those little 1-2 minute animated clips, and it would take me like a month just to do like a minute.
Yeah, it's extreme. And so we, what we're going to try and do, what we're actually doing right now, we're kind of looking on, we already researched a few, and we're going to see if send them some clips, just some like really short clips, like a 1 minute or something like that. And then, in the story, like one little clip, and have them animated. And we just kind of start doing some tests with that. It'll also give us some kind of power to like promote and show other, try to, we don't really know. Like I said, this is all uncharted waters for us, and we're learning as we go. But yeah, that'd be great. Animated series. I can really picture. I don't know if you ever seen that Polytunes. I've seen that guy does a lot of them. He does like some for Joe Rogan and stuff.
Yeah.
It's hilarious when he puts all this stuff with it. And we're like, man, could you imagine having a little clip of like you dancing with your thong on the table and this pirate and this midget? The whole thing was like that in animation would just be amazing. It's just like, so yeah, we're looking at all that. I mean, it's really, pretty broad. We're just, we're going to sit down here soon and say,
I think if you were to do that, even if you were to just do like, maybe a little 3, 4, 5-minute clip and then shop it around to some different aggregators for like, for streaming services, somebody's going to pick it up. I have 100% faith that your podcast is going to be a Netflix show or Hulu or something. Somebody's going to pick it up.
Hulu.
I meant to say, I don't know what I was going to say, but I meant to say Hulu.
Hulu.
Somebody's going to pick it up, and
that'd be great. It'd be fun. I mean, like I said, we both have jobs, and this is just something we're doing, but we're also like, wow, it's so fun, and it's been, it's just, we can see the potential in it, and both of us are driven and having fun. So sky's the limit, really. We'll just see how it goes. I want to point out too, and when we first started this, like Jessie was saying, we did the test, and I don't know how all this works. So I was messaging and sending DMs to like all these like influencers and everyone from Snoop Dogg to, but all that, and some of the podcast, and I said, hey, listen to our show. Tell me, critique it. Tell me what you think. I don't want you to promote it or anything. And I mean, I sent it to all these people. And so one of the podcasts I had listened to was Jason Ellis' show. And Mike Tully, who's on there, he has Tullywood. He has some other shows he done. And this guy has hundreds of thousands of followers, and he's pretty, pretty big. And I sent him a DM. He replied, I thought that was really cool. It was like, he sent this really sincere message back and said, I listened to it. He's like, man, your voice is just so unique. And he's like, you got good flow. He's like, I like that you keep them short. He critiqued it. Like, he genuinely listened to it. I just thought, wow, I was like, that was cool. I mean, that's cool. Artists and creators just, supporting each other. And I think that's what we try to do. And, and like David's done that for us, and you here you are, and it's just cool for all of us to be doing all this positive stuff and just, having fun, man.
Trying to bring some joy to the damn world.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Fucking sunshine to the world.
But we're coming up to the end of the episode. Just want to just say thank you for coming on the show. Keep doing what you're doing, because it's totally fantastic. Like, I can't get enough of it.
Yeah, and now I'm caught on your podcast now, and it's just fun. It's just I love it, man. I appreciate you having us on today too.
And so tell everybody where they can find you on the internet.
oldrob.com. I've been told by my children www is not cool to say anymore.
That's
you need to quit that. So
we don't have to say it anymore.
olrob.com. Also, we have merchandise. Got my shirt on today.
Oh yeah,
I wear my face, and I put my picture up all over the house too.
Oh yeah, me too.
Self-promotion, baby.
You do that too? So you can also go to oldrobbrands.com, or you can go to our store on our website for that stuff too. So yeah, check us out. Yeah,
go check out the Old Rob podcast wherever podcasts are given away for free. It's pretty much everywhere now, isn't it?
It's everywhere. Yeah, we were searching the other day, and people just take it and they just start playing it on their sites and stuff. What we're really trying to do is build up some reviews, and like people go and rate it and stuff to try to kind of bring us up the chain. So we've been promoting that. Give us reviews. We're gonna have some contests soon, win some shirts and beer mugs and all kind of stuff. So be looking out for that. Be fun.
Awesome. Well, Robbie, thank you so much for coming on the episode tonight. And Jacob, you got anything to throw out there before we leave this evening?
Yes, just that this weekend tickets are still available for the Daniel Van Kirk show in Mobile, Alabama at the Alabama Music Box. I will be hosting that. Go ahead and get those tickets so that you won't have to pay more at the door, and come on out to see your boy, as well as the guy he was on Bob's Burgers. Who doesn't want to see a guy who was on Bob's Burgers? It's fucking cool, man. And I'm gonna get tased on Mother's Day, so that's pretty much my weekend.
And if you want to get that tasing video, you're going to have to be a Patreon supporter. So head over to, actually, let me go ahead and play our music. You can become a Patreon supporter over at openmikers.com. You can email us, openmikerspodcast@gmail.com. We are at Open Mikers on Instagram and Twitter, and Open Mikers Podcast on TikTok, which we got a few videos over there now. So go check that out. And thank you for joining us. Thank you to old Rob himself. And we will see you guys next week.
Later.
I have to shit so bad.
Man, be sure and
fantastic.
Be sure and empty your bladder before you get tased, dude.
Oh, yeah. And my butthole.
Oh,